Hello, I'm Maran Gazzari and I'm the producer of Cursed Mountain. Today I will tell you a little bit about Buddhism, which is the background of the game, and I will go into detail about some of the religious background terms that are necessary to understand the story of the game. Now, initially we had this weird idea of how cool it could be to have a game take place in the Tibetan region. The loneliness, the environment, the religious buildings and practices. So, Cursed Mountain is a survival horror game set in the Himalayas. It's about two brothers and their whereabouts on a mountain called the Chomolonzo. Frank Simmons, the younger brother, was gone missing while on a hired expedition searching for an ancient artifact. His older brother Eric Simmons starts a rescue mission to find out what really happened on the mountain, which the local people call the Sacred One. Eric, the main character, is an experienced high-altitude climber, well known in the international climbing community. He cares a lot for his younger brother Frank, also a climber, and has deep concerns about his overambitious, high-risk-taking nature. Somehow, Eric always knew his brother would get into trouble one day, and sure enough, on a particularly difficult route that has never been successfully completed, his brother was lost. Now, as a studio, we believe in introducing new and rich settings to the gamers. Doing so, we spend a lot of time in pre-production, researching the background story for all of our games. These real-world facts enrich the game experience, offering a more intense atmosphere to the player. Buddhism was founded about 1500 years ago by Siddhartha Gautama. He left his students information about the religion and daily routines in time capsules, the so-called termas. A terma is a key piece of wisdom that was written down in ancient times and magically hidden until such future time as the wisdom is needed. Only then does the terma come again into the light. Buddhism believes in life cycles, which means every soul has to do as many life cycles as needed to reach enlightenment in order to be allowed to enter into nirvana. The information about the exact location of these termas was taught to Siddhartha's disciples in a way that they can find them again after a certain number of life iterations. At this time, chosen people start to have visions about these termas and search for them. And every 150 to 200 years, these termas are actually found in that region in real life. The inspiration for Cursed Mountain is the idea about a situation where a non-chosen and unholy person finds such a terma and uses it in a way not meant to. Another important term in Buddhism and Cursed Mountain is the bardo. The bardo is the realm of the afterlife. It is the intermediate stage one passes through between death and rebirth. Simply speaking, in the bardo, each soul has to pass certain tests in order to find out whether it already reached enlightenment and is allowed to move on to nirvana, or if the soul has to return to another life cycle on earth. In Buddhism, mountains are personified gods, and in our case it's a goddess. Certain rituals are needed to be performed in order to be allowed to climb up a mountain and return safely from the summit. A very well-known ritual includes a pilgrim's path around the mountain that has to be performed 13 times before the person has sufficiently pleased the gods. The usage of such rituals is part of Cursed Mountains, but they are not performed in a proper way in our game. That's the reason why our goddess gets very upset and spreads a curse over the region. The curse affects the process of life cycles. The dead souls are stuck in the bardo and they cannot move on to nirvana or back to another life iteration. This situation obviously makes them pretty angry. That was a first glimpse of Cursed Mountain, the storyline and the unusual things that happen in the Himalayas. There's more to come, don't miss it.
Hi, I'm Gunther Hager. I'm the design director of Cursed Mountain. Today we'll take a closer look at Cursed Mountain. The player starts in Lando, a small village located at an altitude of 5,000 meters and ends up on the summit of Chomolonzo at more than 8,000 meters. In order to get there, Eric will pass the rich and diversified scenery of the Himalayas, including smaller villages, terraced fields, ice glaciers and mountain passes. The further he ascends, the harsher the threats of the environment will get. If you don't play tactically, Eric can crash into the ice, be blown off the mountain by strong gusts of wind, and run out of oxygen and stamina in the upper heights called the Death Zone. Even though Cursed Mountain takes place on a fictional mountain, the topography and the geography of the area is based on real-world satellite data. We try to convey the hostile world of high-altitude climbing as best as possible in order to catch the authentic and dangerous atmosphere of mountaineering. The setting requires a great impression of distance. The entire country is set at such a high altitude that looking up at over 8,000 meter high mountains And also looking down again is a vital part of the experience. Though Cursed Mountain is a linear game experience, the entire world is visible to the player at all times. This means, standing in Lando, the first level in the game, you can actually see the complete trail up to the summit. The same applies when you're further up on Chomolonzo, at which point you can turn back and see all the levels that you've already passed and accomplished. We think that this is a completely new and astonishing feature on the Wii platform. What the player experiences is very scary and violent. Half of the people that climb up these mountains die up there and are left behind. You will encounter dead bodies, frozen mummies and fear-inducing Buddhist rituals. Cursed Mountain is violent in the sense of ever-present danger, very aggressive environments and enemies. Thanks for tuning in to find out more about the actual world of Cursed Mountain. Stay tuned as there is more to come.
Hi folks, my name's Darren Lambourne and I'm the audio director, musician and sound designer on Cursed Mountain. And I'm here today to give you an inside view of the audio production behind the project. With Cursed Mountain, we have a very lethal environment. It's inhospitable, it's got high altitudes, extreme cold, and bleak, rugged terrain. But there's also this spiritual thread running through the game world as well. And there are themes of death, love, insanity, and the occult.
You're beautiful.
So this path leads me to intertwine the music and the environmental effects. One informs the other. And so the line between the score and the soundtrack are intentionally blurred. And I think it hints at a sort of a oneness, a singularity in the game world, which is what I hope will be communicated by the audio in Cursed Mountain. I collected together many instruments and materials from the region and set them up at home in an environment where I could record them whenever I felt inspired to. So you're going to hear a timbre from the region in the music score and also in the environmental effects. Tibetan singing bowls flow in and out of the wind effects, and the wind flows in and out of the music. You'll hear the sound of tiny metal bells, for example, in the snow particles that fall in the ice caves of the game. It's this combination of the real and surreal that I think you're going to find interesting in Cursed Mountain. We wanted to make the player feel small, vulnerable, and an alien in his environment. So the environmental weather effects are very important in conveying the message and giving the land itself a sense of presence and a sense of power. But inside all those powerful effects, if you stand and listen for a moment, you're going to hear sort of tortured voices and sinister echoes coming out from the shadows. I wanted to give the environment a certain honesty, and so I tried to avoid the standard sort of Hollywood cliches and use the sonic diversity of the natural environment as a language used to communicate with the player. And I think that, more than anything, is what gives Cursed Mountain its own unique voice. I've never really worked on a game before where the sounds were actually so very rare, but in a strange way very familiar. They're crude, but incredibly powerful, primal sounds. There's this harshness of the wind, the thunder, the lightning, huge sounds, with all this wonderful counterpoint as well of the spirituality that runs through the land. Well, thanks for tuning in, and I really hope you're going to enjoy the audio experience that Cursed Mountain has in store for you.
Hi there, I am Julian Canning, art director of Cursed Mountain at Deep Silver. Today I'm going to give you an overview about the production values and art direction of Cursed Mountain.
Cutting begin.
At the beginning we started with cultural as well as religious environments and background story. The idea was to establish ties between horror and religious traditions or rituals from Tibet. Our goal was to create an atmosphere based on the best characteristics of both of these worlds. As already mentioned before, all our games are based on thorough research and real-world facts. So all art assets you see in the game are based on extensive research and references from the real world or mythical Buddhist traditions. We took the freedom to add a little bit of our own imagination to all assets though. The workflow included searching for references and combining them with our vision. After a period of reflection and settlement, we worked hard to create something new and very unique in order to offer the player an authentic and very special gaming experience. One thing that particularly attracted us was the Tibetan architecture. The very special style of these buildings offers very unique and impressive visuals for gamers. Coming from an alpine country, we know what effort is needed to create such astonishing architecture at such height in the real world, out in the middle of nowhere. It was important for us to convey the breathtaking views of the Tibetan environment. The player should always have the impression of being small and vulnerable compared to the huge buildings and ancient religion. Another very important aspect to convey the mythical atmosphere of Cursed Mountain are the cutscenes. The style of these short stories support the surreal weirdness of Frank's and Eric's journey to the summit of the Sacred One. We've chosen this style specifically to tell a tale based on unknown secrets of Buddhist religion and our Western understanding of it. A complete different approach than the one we are using for Ride to Hell, for example, with more than 2 hours of motion capture movie-style video. I hope you enjoyed the journey through the art world of Cursed Mountain. Stay tuned, there's still more to come.
Hello, I'm Hannes. I'm the executive producer of Cursed Mountain. Today I'm going to tell you what opponents, enemies and encounters Eric is going to face in Cursed Mountain. Who or what is Eric Simmons actually fighting against? Eric has to face several threats in Cursed Mountain, the first of which is the mountain itself, Chomolungma, which local people call the Sacred One. High altitude climbing is very dangerous. A lot of mountaineers do not return from the expeditions and remain up there. Eric has to stand the bitter cold and wind, blizzards as well as lack of oxygen in the upper heights called the Death Zone. All of these extreme weather conditions are part of Eric's fight up to the summit. Beyond the elements, Eric will encounter creatures that will make it difficult for him to decide whether they are real or consequences of high altitude sickness and lack of oxygen. Eric realizes on his way up to the summit that these souls are ghosts of dead local people, climbers, and monks from monasteries along his trail. All these enemies are stuck in the Bardo due to the curse that was spread throughout the whole region. All these ghosts are based on real-world references, like typical farmers from the Himalayas, or climbers equipped with mountain gear from the 80s. These people follow their daily routines, as some of them don't even realize that they're actually dead. The curse came into effect exactly the moment when those people died, and especially the Western climbers have no clue what's happening to them. The monks, though, are even more angry and aggressive, as they realize what's going on and feel helpless in the state of Bardo. For this reason, monks are higher level enemies and won't interfere with the player at the very beginning. Last but not least, very typical for a level-based game, Eric has to defeat several bosses. These bosses are based on Tibetan and Buddhist mythology, but are all fictional, a combination of various influences and religious creatures and gods. All of them are very powerful and show the violent as well as destructive force that also exists in Buddhism. In order to defeat these enemies, Eric has to use mantras, prayers and gestures that the player has to perform with both arms. We will open the player's body language, forcing him to face his fear while fighting the enemies with these gestures. Doing so, the player will be pulled even deeper into the atmosphere of the Tibetan mountains. In Lando, the city Eric starts his rescue mission, he finds Frank's ice pick. Due to the spiritual connection between the brothers, Eric realizes that this mountain gear is very special. Frank has performed an ancient ritual which gave the ice pick special powers in order to resist and defeat spiritual enemies. During the game, Eric will find more artifacts that power up the pickaxe, offering various kinds of attack. After reducing the opponent's health to a certain limit, a special finishing move is available. Frank is able to defeat the enemy performing a mantra, a Buddhist prayer, with gestures of both arms. Based on the enemy's level, each ghost class requires special prayers and gestures, which are more or less complex, depending on the enemy. Throughout the game, Eric meets several NPCs who introduce him to the mythical powers of Buddhism. He will learn to use mantras to protect himself and to understand what really happened to his brother Frank. That was a brief overview of the enemies and the combat that await you in Cursed Mountain. Eric's way to the summit is filled with life-taking threats and dangers. Will he be able to find Frank in time?